This site is of great historical importance. The influential and extensive monastic settlement and abbey, which gave the town its name, was once among the wealthiest institutions in the country. The abbey church still dominates the landscape, and its Norman columns are among the best preserved in Britain. Legends suggest that Waltham Abbey is the burial site of King Harold, the last Saxon king who died in 1066 at the Battle of Hastings. The country park includes features from the earlier abbey estate, such as the monastic fish ponds. The cornmill stream, constructed in the 12th century, provided power for the Waltham corn mills and is now of nature conservation interest. The gateway, built in 1369 of stone and bricks, formed the main entrance to the abbey precinct, which was set within its own enclosure separate from the town. The bricks we can see to our left are examples of Essex brick, which are much larger than today's bricks. They were probably made locally and are some of the earliest medieval bricks known in the country. The gateway was approached via a bridge over the Cornmill stream, and visitors would have been faced by the central gateway for carts and horses, with a smaller gateway for travellers on foot. This double gateway was turreted on either side and may have had an upper story. If you look on the outside of the gateway, you will notice two shields. The imagery on these has long since been weathered and decayed. One of the shields is believed to be the royal coat of arms of Edward III from the mid-14th century, showing the French fleur-de-lis and the English lion's arms. Much of France was ruled by the English king at that time. What came to be known as the Midnight Chapel is in fact an entrance to the cloisters, which were part of the 12th century abbey. In the 1930s it was used by local farmers as a potato store. It is possible that it may have been put to similar use by the Dennys family when they lived in Abbey House. If you look inside, you will see the vaulted ceiling, which is typical of the Gothic architecture in the 12th century. If we look up to the left hand side of the doorway, we can still see remnants of the stairway, which the canons would have used to come down from the daughter or sleeping quarters to the cloisters. Ahead we will see the semicircular apse of the 12th century Romanesque church marked in the ground. The apse was constructed to allow pilgrims to progress around the Holy Cross, which was said to have special healing powers. The town of Waltham grew as a result of being a centre of pilgrimage. To our right, we will see the cloisters of Henry II's Abbey marked out in the ground. Daily life for the canons centred on the cloisters, which at Waltham lay to the north side of the monastic church. The cloisters were an open courtyard surrounded by a covered walkway. They gave access to the buildings where the canons worked and lived. Traditionally, work took place on the south side, while novices received instruction on the eastern side. On the north side of the cloisters, we can see the original entrance chamber, sometimes known as the Midnight Chapel. Above it on the eastern wall are stairs which once led to the canons' sleeping quarters. After the dissolution of the abbey on the 23rd of March 1540, much of the land owned by the abbey was granted to Sir Anthony Denny, a privy councillor, by his friend Henry VIII. Sir Anthony's grandson, Sir Edward Denny, built Abbey House reusing materials from the ruins of the Abbey. Much evidence of the reused materials can be seen on both sides of the wall ahead of us. The remains of the fireplaces and windows, which would have been in the south wing of the building, are clearly recognisable. The house was described in 1735 as beautiful to behold. The sumptuous hall, 49 feet and 6 inches long and 28 feet high, included oak panelling thought to have been made from the last abbot, Robert Fuller, in about 1530. The house was demolished in 1770, possibly after a fire, but the oak panelling survived and can be seen in the Epping Forest District Museum in Sun Street. Harold, the last Saxon King of England, was killed at the Battle of Hastings on the 14th of October 1066. Duke William of Normandy refused Harold's mother permission to claim his body. It was later identified by Harold's mistress, Edith Swan Neck, and brought back to Waltham. Having been cured of paralysis after praying here, Harold had extended the church, and it became a favourite of his. In 1066, after he defeated the Vikings at the Battle of Stamford Bridge near York, he diverted his march south to Hastings so that he could pray at Waltham for another victory. Sources recount that King Harold's body was moved several times as the church was extended. There are various theories as to the exact location of his final resting place. There are several parts of the present church which can be attributed to Harold, including the stones set in a herringbone pattern in the east wall behind us. There are other features both inside and outside the church, and more information can be found in the crypt. Harold was crowned in 1066. His coronation and death were depicted in the Bayeux tapestry, which was embroidered by English women at a later date. The chapter house of the Abbey is where the canons gathered every morning at 9 AM. This was the daily family meeting when the benefactors and saints of the day were remembered. There was a short service and a chapter was read from the rule under which the monastery ran. The canons made their confessions of failure in front of their father abbot and spiritual brothers. The business of the day was discussed and orders were given for special jobs to be done or overseen around the monastery and the community the canons served. Important letters were read and considered by all the canons. When eminent men came to the abbey on business, religious or secular, they were received in the chapter house. Following the construction of the chapter house, senior members of the clergy were buried below its floors until the practice stopped at the time of the Black Death in 1348. This wall was restored after the dissolution using rubble from the ruins, including Purbeck marble and Reigate stone pillars, which are clearly visible. These were probably reclaimed from the ruins of the cloisters. The clerestory, or upper arches, inside the church are an example of how these pillars would have looked.